And of course, we were talking about the sentiments yesterday by the president and of course over the weekend also in regards to the judiciary. And before I come back to my guest here in studio, I want us to just hear what Kamande Murigi, he is an advocate of the High Court. He's going to be joining us, I understand, shortly from our City Centre studio. And of course, we're discussing the sentiments that the judiciary is out to scuttle the August 8th poll. And Kisia, you were making a statement before we took that break, and you were reacting to some of the issues that Osoro raised. But really, going back to the comments that they made about the judiciary trying to delay the August 8th poll, is that even possible?
You see, I think the biggest issue we're facing right now is whether our opponents are ready for the 8th August general elections, 2017, not 2018. It's 2017. So the rest, whatever you're seeing, these are sideshows, these are casino. They have just realized that we have about 27 days to elections, and they must create a problem. Now, you see, when you talk about public interest, the judiciary should have taken that into account. That we have 30 days at that time to elections, and that if you follow any other method of procuring ballot printing, it will go beyond 8th. If you look at the Constitution, which my friend has read very well, Section 55, I think 1, is very clear. That if it's an international tender, you need 21 days to advertise. Then you'll need about 7 to 10 days to evaluate. Then, of course, you will then give the person who is successful, you'll award the tender. After awarding the tender, you will then give a 14-day window for appeal. That takes you to almost end of September. So if we take any other route other than the route that had been taken by IEBC, are we going to have elections this year? Certainly not. I think our opponents were wishing and hoping that they'll use the same tactics they've been using since January last year. You remember, last year they talked about Isaac and team. These are not good referees. And we said, okay, if it's about Isaac has only one vote, if that can make a difference, get him out and his team.
Right.
Then they started, destroying property and, causing chaos in town. And we said, for the sake of this country, we are ready for any other person to chair that the commission. We are ready for any company to print the ballot boxes. We are ready for elections.
All right.
I think that's the main thing.
All right. But going back to your comment, Kisia, about the judiciary, they operate within the statutes of the Constitution. No matter what judgment or ruling they go by, it normally is informed by the Constitution. So the same judiciary now has a problem if indeed they're making all these rulings according to the Constitution. Is that the case? Is that the concern?
No, that is not the case. You see, when you talk about public interest, what is interest is bigger than public. When they were making that ruling, we had 30 days to elections. Are they creating room for a crisis? Because if you use any other method other than direct procuring, we shall not have elections this August, probably next year. And therefore, I think what our opponents are trying to do is to create a confusion, to create a lacuna, so that there's room for Nusumukate government.
But is it the opponents or the
yes, it's the opponents, probably using the, whatever the system is. So it is
because
creating
the opposition and the judiciary, those
so
are
that
two
they can
different.
have room for asking for a caretaker government or a Nusumukate government. I can now tell them here and now that they must be ready for elections on 8th August 2017.
All right. Osoro, your thoughts?
First and foremost, I think what the Jubilee side of coalition is actually seeking is also sympathy, which is very wrong. That probably the opposition wants Nusumukate. There is nothing like that, and that shouldn't even be coming out from them. I mean, in any case, every person wants this government out, like yesterday. And if possible, we could even be having that election tomorrow. Nobody wants postponement of the election date. And in fact, having said that, let me bring Mr. Kisia up to speed on the matter that was before court. This matter that was before court wasn't brought forth by any person from NASA. And their main competitor is NASA. The very first matter that was brought before court, before Justice Odunga, by Orengo, was about the relationship between Al Ghurair and the president, which was thrown out by Justice Odunga.
Yes.
The matter that went through, that ruled in favor of the petitioners, was the matter brought forth by Dr. Aukot. I don't know, some party's presidential candidate.
Yes, it's Ekuru.
Ekuru Aukot. Exactly. That is the matter that went through. So I do not know who is actually using the opposition, because NASA does not even come through in that matter that, in regard to the tendering. In the issue that is said about the timelines, about, we've got these days and people want to, let me make it clear that he's been long enough than me. He's held several elections. He's been present. Well, elections have been held in this country than me. And he should be knowing that them days, then, people were going to elections, like nominations were being held even 3 weeks before the election date. And we could even have our presidential ballot papers printed within a week of that particular day. Now, IEBC is not limited to international tendering of, production of ballot papers. They can do documents or printing of papers even locally. It is not limited. Why do we not trust our structures within this country? That is where we go wrong. What we are saying here is this. The very first thing is that we should respect our courts, whether they favor our side or not. When they do not favor our side, go to the higher court and sue, and make an appeal. You have that chance.
All right.
Stop bringing sideshows about, conflict of interest. And I want to respond to the conflict of interest question here. That Justice Onungo probably has got relationship ties with James Orengo. But James Orengo is a lawyer. You are a lawyer acting for the client. And actually, in this particular matter, James Orengo wasn't acting for the client. Our court wasn't acting for him. So clearly, you cannot say that there is conflict of interest. You can only say that if one particular person is a party to that issue, to that matter in court, and you cannot bring out a relationship factor right now upon having Justice Odunga in the bench for 10 years. So clearly, what are you saying?
Right.
I think my good brother, Bwana Odari, the incoming Member of Parliament for South Mugirango.
Yes.
I think this is double speak. It's about double speak. Because on one side you're saying that the law must be followed. On the other side is saying that we can print the ballot boxes locally. Actually, we have no issue. And as I've said before, they can be printed in Kisumu, they can be printed in Kakamega. Choose your destination. We are ready for elections. What is most important is that if we follow any other method of procuring, and we follow the law, and you're a lawyer, refer to section 55
in regard to international?
Giving, not even if it's local, it's 14 days.
Now, fantastic.
1 second, even if it's local, even if you say, let's print these things locally, at the very best, I think you have to give the people who apply for the tender 14 days minimum. That is the law.
Exactly.
14 days minimum. If you take 14 days,
if you do
then
with it,
1 second, relax, my brother.
Okay.
Then you need time to evaluate. These are not things you evaluate like having a cup of tea. It's a serious process that must be given time. So give it another 7 to 10 days. Then you give a window of 14 days for appeal. Supposing that person, even you use any other method other than direct, and the person who wins this particular tender, the other party appeals, then we're in chaos. We're actually in a crisis. But finally, the mere fact that aspersion was cast, the mere fact that there was some smell that the judge and my good friend Senator Orengo could be having a relationship, that was enough from him to step aside on the bigger issue. The bigger issue was about elections. Any other thing is a side show to delay elections.
All right, let me hear the sentiments of Kamande Murigi. He's joining us from our City Center studio. He's an advocate of the High Courts and a political commentator. Thank you very much for joining us. So we're talking about the remarks that the President made in regards to the judiciary trying to scuttle the August 8th general election. What are your sentiments on that?
Thank you very much, Betty. First of all, there has been so much, I would say, hullabaloo about the perceived interference with the judiciary by the presidency. But it must be remembered that whatever we are seeing here is something that has been ongoing, the bashing of the judiciary. And it's something I would say it started like almost a month ago. You remember when there was this decision by the High Court. It was a 3-judge bench concerning the declaration of results at the constituency level. We remember when the government and IEBC appealed. There were all manner of attacks from the opposition side. It happened in rallies and all that. And you realize that you're in a campaign period, in an electionary period. So the politicians will come up with all manner of accusations. But that, as it may be, it is unfortunate when you see such comments coming from the political leaders. One thing is that it erodes confidence in the judiciary. And we know the reason why, for example, in 2007, 2008, the opposition then refused to take their matters to court, and they were arguing that they even called it, I remember it was being called Court Bandia. It's because there was no confidence in the judiciary. But since the Constitution was enacted in 2010, we have seen enormous, what do you call them, enormous changes and developments and reforms in the judiciary. And I believe people have taken time and they are now getting accustomed to a reformed judiciary. So in the face of all this, what we need to accept is that we've moved away from the past, from the previous judiciary, and now we're in a new era. We should respect it. But above all, it should not be a situation where we are moving to judicial dictatorship. That the judiciary should also look at the circumstances, the prevailing conditions in the country, and in their rulings and judgment, they ought to consider they ought to consider the position that we are right now.
All right, so you're saying that that last statement that you made, I'd like some more clarity on that. So you're saying that the judiciary should be able to sort of like read the mood and the time that we're in and make a judgment or give a verdict that is favorable to the environment. Is that what you're saying?
Precisely, and what we call it, there is also the public interest. You look at a situation where we are 30 days to the election, you have all manner of election appeals, all manner of petitions, all manner of judicial review applications coming to the court. And then you also have accusations and counter-accusations from the politicians about the biasness of the bench or their relations in the bench, that the bench is giving a certain side of the political divide undue advantage. You see, now those things, and that's what I'm saying, that the court should actually consider the prevailing facts. For example, you do not want a situation where you have a petition that is not determined 2 days to the election. What will happen? The elections, even if we know that the Constitution provides that the election shall be held on the second Tuesday of August in the 5th year, and now we have it that it's supposed to be in the August of 8th, what will happen is that we'll have a situation, a constitutional crisis. We'll not be so sure whether you'll still be going into elections on that particular day. So what I'm saying, that the judiciary should not operate in isolation. Yes, it is one of the institutions of government, and it should read the mood, and it should facilitate such that we have free, fair elections, but also we also need to abide by the timelines. It also needs to consider other factors so that now elections have to be held.
Right, Kamane, just before I come back to my guest here in studio, so where do you then draw the line for the judiciary in regards to giving a favorable judgment like you're talking about and following what is stipulated in the Constitution?
You see, and this is a fact that judges based their judgment on the law and the facts and the evidence that is presented before them.
Yes.
It is, and I would say this, I'm not a judicial officer, but I know it's a balancing act. Yes? You cannot, for example, do something knowing that the country is going to ban. There is the public interest that is there. The court, that is the overriding, I would call it the overriding interest, the public good. It should look at all that and then determine what is the best for this country. You do not have to go looking for far-fetched, for example, for far-fetched constitutional principles for you, for example, to make a certain judgment.
All right.
And that's the situation that you see, and everybody, some people are complaining that you have 30 days to the election. There are more and more petitions that are coming. So what next?
All right. Okay, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. I mean, where does the judiciary then draw the line from doing what's favorable, what is accepted, by maybe, whichever side of the divide or even both of them, and, following what's supposed to actually happen?
No, in all fairness, the judiciary is supposed to act independently. I mean, clearly. However, in making their decisions, of course, there are other grounds besides the law that the learned judges need to see before making judgments. And one of it, like you well put, which I agree, is one, you can actually look at the public interest and make a law that relates to the public, that does not affect any person. But if you look at this particular time or this ruling, you will see that there is room for negotiation, that we are not limited to only having a long process of tendering. And that is why IEBC invited the presidential candidates to a closed-door meeting to settle that matter amicably. If they decide collectively, in unison, that in togetherness we've agreed that this is the company that you want, to print the presidential ballot papers, I mean, we'll have peace and we'll have no issue. I mean, so clearly the judiciary is supposed to act utmostly within the law and without fearing any person. However, there is need for public interest.
All right.
From where we stand as Jubilee, we have no business determining who prints the ballot papers. They can actually be printed anywhere. We have no qualms, and I repeat, we are ready for elections on 8th August 2017. I think what we need to look at, as your learned friend has rightly put it, public interest. Once you define what public interest is, then, of course, you make your judgment based on those particular interests. We are talking about a nation with 45 million people. We are talking of a nation with 19.5 million Kenyans who are ready to vote. Now, you are talking about some few people meeting over a cup of tea and mandazi and changing they cannot change the law. The law should be followed to the letter. They cannot decide who prints the ballot papers. They cannot change the Procurement Act of 2005, which clearly says that if you have to float a tender, you must give the tenderers 21 days notice.
All right.
So there's a process which cannot be changed by a few people in a room having tea and mandazi.
Kisa, do you think that the judiciary right now, as it is, last week after the remarks were made by the president, the Chief Justice came out and said that it was actually regrettable that those comments were made because the judiciary is doing all it can to really prepare for the general election. But from where you sit, do you think that they're well prepared to, even after the general election, to handle the disputes that will arise?
I think we have faith in our judiciary. We have faith in all our institutions. I think that must be made very clear. But however, if there are certain things that are done which are contrary to the law, we shall not stop talking, we shall talk about them. But, you can be rest assured that we respect the judiciary and the judgments they make.
Some of them.
All of them. But we just want to request one thing from our opponents, that the election date, no matter what tactics they use, the election date of 8th August 2017 will not change. Nothing will move that date. We are not going to create a lacuna. We are not going to create a situation where we have a caretaker government or a government of Nusumukate. They must just be ready to face the voters.
No, we need to be fair. Clearly, we need to be fair. And this one, I speak with a lot of respect to Mr. Philip Kisia, who really, during his time at the helm of the Nairobi County, it was very clean. I mean, unlike now, very clear. I don't know why he never ran for that seat. But
I was going to at some point.
Exactly, and decided to support Jubilee. But let me say this, that we shouldn't be taking sideshows as of now. And I think this is clear. Jubilee came into power out of the sympathies of Kenya. I mean, they never had an agenda. Right now, they're looking for something to tell Kenyans that probably the opposition wants Nusumukate, which the opposition hasn't come out clear to say that we want Nusumukate. Actually, who even wants Nusumukate for Christ's sake? Nobody. Every person wants this government out. Now, what I'm saying is this, that when the ruling or the judgments made in court are not in our favor, we should let it happen. Days are gone when the executive was using courts to undermine the opposition or any voice that was contrary to it. Right now, the president runs his arm of government as the head of state and let the president of the judiciary handle his thing. And that is why you've seen that clearly our democracy has changed. In early 90s, you could see that, even if you ran to court, judges could make ruling that could favor the president just to, to get him excited and to appease him. So what we are saying is that let the judiciary do its thing. And I'm very happy that nobody is shaken Justice Maraga came out clearly and said, we are doing our thing independently. We are not going to be shaken. Even if the president, comes out with a lot of, very venomous, nobody's scared about him.
Okay.
Because they are independent and it's within the law. You cannot be speaking about the law and you do not want to abide by the people who are there to interpret the law.
My brother has made something, made a comment that cannot be left unchallenged. One, Jubilee in 2013 came with a manifesto that was derived from Vision 2030.
Where are the laptops?
Okay? The laptops are all over. Unless you're blind, but even if you're blind, I'm sure you've heard. Even if you're blind,
thank God you're not blind. In South Mugrango, I do not see laptops.
Thank God you're not blind.
Where are the stadiums?
But even if you're blind, you've seen. We are not saying that we've delivered 100%. We have not seen we've delivered 100%.
Out of the 5 pillars, give us one thing. Give us one thing that Jubilee has done.
We have delivered 70% of what we said we should deliver. Okay? The other things we are talking about, let's not get into casinos and sideshows. Things have been done. But of course, you are in some party called Kenya National or something.
Yes.
You may not want to see what has been done. But majority of Kenyans have seen, and that is why all the opinion polls that have been run, including the one that my good friend Raila commissioned, shows very clearly that Uhuru is ahead by 8 points.
No, we do not mind about being ahead.
I think
but these failed promises because of
which one?
You've lacked to tell Kenyans what you can do.
We're veering off the topic this morning. We'll take a break right now, and we're coming back, and then we'll be hearing the final comments of my guests and also Kamande Murigi, who's also joining us from our City Center studio. That's coming up shortly.
This is KTN News.